I never imagined the heartbreaking truth behind where poor peasants sought refuge during journeys. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air hung heavy with desperation, thick like the fog that swallowed my village each dawn. I stood amidst the ruins of what was once home, clutching a frayed map in my trembling hands. Dark clouds rolled overhead, mirroring the chaos in my heart. My family's laughter echoed in my mind, a haunting symphony of joy now replaced by the hollow sounds of despair. Every step I took felt like a betrayal, the gravel digging into my bare feet. I remembered my sister, Elara, her smile bright as the sun, pulling me into the shadows of the trees. "We'll find a way," she always said. But the truth loomed larger than any warm words. How could we have known the price of our hope? The villages burned, the people scattered. As I navigated the forgotten paths, I stumbled upon a flicker of light. It danced in the distance, almost teasing me. Was that a fire? My heart raced, hope fluttering within my chest. But as I approached, the crackle of flames morphed into frantic whispers, warnings echoing around the hidden camp. The peasants had gathered, weary souls searching for a momentary escape from their troubled lives. They huddled together, faces gaunt and eyes wide with fear. Their stories intertwined like old ivy, each thread heavy with loss. "We came from the north," said a woman with sunken cheeks, her voice cracking. "They took everything." My breath caught in my throat. The wind seemed to howl their pain as if the world itself mourned for them. Curiosity gripped me, but caution kept me anchored. I learned of the trails they traveled, dark and twisted, always under the watchful gaze of danger. With each tale, the air thickened, shadows creeping closer, wrapping around us like a looming shroud. What horrors lay beyond? What unspeakable truths hid among the flickering shadows? Suddenly, a scream shattered the fragile silence. Fear overtook reason. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm. The search for answers became a desperate struggle against the unknown. Was it fear or courage that drove me deeper into their world? I felt the weight of their grief, anchoring me in a sea of uncertainty. As darkness enveloped us, I wanted to believe we could find refuge, that hope would guide us through this nightmare. But another scream rang out, cutting sharper than glass, and shadows elongated, closing in with hungry eyes. What awaited us in that darkness? Was there salvation, or were we all destined for despair? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The night was an oppressive blanket, draping itself over the restless camp like a shroud. I stood at the edge, heart racing against the cacophony of anxious whispers. The shadows seemed to pulse with life, the campfire casting twisted silhouettes that danced like phantoms. Each scream still echoed in my mind, a cruel reminder of our fragility. That I felt the pull of the people around me, their sorrow mingling with mine. The woman who spoke of losing everything, her hollow eyes reflected a truth I understood too well. We were all searching for something that had been stolen from us. But what made us human was the relentless hope that persisted alongside our despair. Just then, a spark of light flickered beyond the embers of the fire. A young boy, perhaps not older than 7, darted past me, his small frame a blur of heart and fear. "They're coming!" he cried, his voice breaking through the haze of grief and confusion. My breath hitched, the weight of his words twisted my gut. In a heartbeat, the fear that had settled over the camp ignited into panic. Women hoisted their children close, men stood alert, hands poised for whatever might emerge from the dark. I moved instinctively, drawing nearer to the boy as he flung himself into my arms. His small body trembled against mine, a fragile life clinging to any semblance of safety he could find. I felt tears welling in my eyes but swallowed hard, forcing myself to remain strong. Stay with me, I whispered, a promise I was desperate to uphold. The night pressed in closer, the whispers became frantic shouts as figures appeared in the distance, menacing shapes moving with purpose. They were figures I couldn't recognize but could instinctively trust to bring chaos. I didn't know whether to run or fight, but in that moment, an unexpected kindness bloomed within me. The woman with the sunken cheeks stepped forward, fiercely protective. We will not let them take what little we have left. Her words ignited a flicker of defiance within the group, and I could see the solidarity forming. Where fear had tied us into knots, courage began to loosen the binds. People stood shoulder to shoulder, ready to face whatever darkness threatened us. As the shapes drew nearer, I felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. It was not just my survival I was fighting for, it was for that small boy in my arms, for the woman who had spoken of loss, and for every person battling against despair. The urgency morphed into something tangible. We were in this together, and together we could resist. The figures emerged from the shadows, revealing weary faces etched with determination rather than malice. They too had been drawn to the flicker of firelight, a sanctuary, a temporary hive of hope amidst the evolving darkness of our shared plight. Their bodies, though battered by time and travel, radiated a kind of strength that bolstered the flickering flame inside of me. Among them was a man, tall and fierce, with skin weathered by the sun. His voice, a rumble of gravel, broke the tension. "We come to share our food. We've lost our way, just as you have lost your homes." He extended a hand, and the gesture seemed to paralyze the air, heavy with disbelief. My heart leapt, a flicker of humanity amidst despair, a bridge forming where a chasm once gaped, but before anyone could respond, a low growl reverberated in the background, a guttural sound that snaked its way into our hearts, quickening pulses and silencing breath. The boy in my arms stiffened, and I looked down, searching his eyes for the innocence I wanted so desperately to believe in. But fear had etched its mark across his small face. "Dogs," someone hissed, eyes wide with dread. Hunting hound's instinct took over, and one by one, we made a decision, powerful in its simplicity: we would not scatter in fear. Instead, we stood at the brink, hands clasped, united against the encroaching darkness. The multitude of breaths came together, a heartbeat forged from fear but defiant in its unity. As the hound's growls escalated into a frightening symphony, I caught sight of a glimpse of a tall figure against the slivers of moonlight, not far from where the pack prowled. That figure shimmered with familiarity. My heart sank, a truth heavy enough to crush every hope we had built. "Is that?" "No." I breathed, disbelief creeping into my words as I realized the past was not finished with me yet. The figure stepped into the light, looking right at me with hollow eyes and a face I never thought I would see again. Elara. The air shifted, heavy with the weight of recognition as Elara stepped into the flickering glow of the campfire. The boy in my arms squirmed, sensing the tension that crackled between us. My heart raced, a riot of confusion and betrayal colliding within me. How could she be here, after all that had happened? "Elara," I managed, my voice barely more than a whisper. I wanted to scream her name, to demand explanations, but the fire crackled, and the growls of the hounds turned our world upside down. Her gaze remained locked on mine, a storm of emotions swirling behind her eyes: fear, regret, an unspoken plea for understanding. "We need to get out of here," she called to the people huddled around the fire. Now, but the sight of her transformed my feelings. The protective bubble I had built for the boy around me began to shatter. Elara had betrayingly been lost to me before, swept away by a tide of anger and decisions made in fear. "Why are you here?" I called back, challenging the flutter of hope trying to claw its way to the surface. "Do you want to help, or now is not the time?" she snapped, taking a step closer. "You can't let them scent your fear. You need to think." I felt the weight of her words pressing against me, yet the memory of all we had lost together gnawed at my resolve. Her presence was a tether, one that I simultaneously wanted to cling to and recoil from. A collective gasp cut through the air as two hounds leapt forward, their snarls breaking through the forest. The people around me shifted, panic illuminating their expressions as they rushed to stand between the children and the emerging threat. Ilara's voice pierced through the chaos as she barked orders, her innate authority rising to the surface. Get the kids off the ground. We need to make a wall. The boy clutched my shirt, his little hands trembling, but a flicker of something unnameable sparked to life in my chest, a defiance sharpened by the sense of protection enveloping us. We would protect each other, together no matter the ghosts that haunted our hearts. Taking a deep breath, I turned to the other survivors, gathering them behind me, heart pounding in rhythm with the chaotic breath surrounding us. Keep calm. I shouted, my voice trembling but steady. We can't let them smell our fear, we need to stand together. In that moment, I felt the soft squeeze of Ilara's hand as she stepped beside me, her eyes brimming with an intensity one had almost forgotten. Do you trust me? She asked quietly, urgency lacing her words. No, I shot back, before I could stop myself, every ounce of anger fueling my response. But before Ilara could respond, the earth thundered beneath the pack of hounds, and their snarls crescendoed into a deafening symphony. Unexpectedly, I found myself glancing at the faces of the people around me, strangers who had previously only shared grief but were now bound together by a shared sense of purpose. They looked to me, a flicker of hope shining in their eyes. Leading them was no longer a choice but a necessity. Now! Ilara shouted, snapping me from my thoughts. Together we formed a line, our bodies staunch against the nightmares creeping closer. The boy was sheltered against my side, small and warm, a lifeline anchoring me to a fragile resolve. The hounds lunged forward. I saw them barreling toward us, fearful ferocity igniting my instincts. I felt Ilara's breath at my shoulder, the heat of her presence alongside me. Without anticipating the next move, I shifted my weight, raising a makeshift shield crafted from a nearby wooden plank even as Ilara was silently calling others to prepare. Then it happened. The ground trembled as the lead hound barreled toward us, its muzzle dripping with anticipation, just as Ilara threw herself forward with a weapon in hand left available from the camp. The air, thick with tension and the scent of impending danger, stilled as time seemed to elongate in those heart-stopping seconds, and at that anguished moment, conjoined by horror and courage melding together, I saw something shift in her eyes, something I would never have expected. It was a glimpse of betrayal cloaked in the guise of determination. Only to realize as her grip around the knife tightened, she wasn't hunting for the hounds after all. A shadow shifted behind her, indistinguishable against the wilderness, and with a look I had seen once before, the very essence of broken trust, she turned the blade toward me. Before I could process her intention, her voice broke through the chaos once more, urgent and heavy with fear. I can't let them take you from me again. Everything shattered in that moment, my breath caught in my throat, and my heart plummeted. I stood at the precipice of a decision, every vulnerability laid bare as I realized that the darkest shadows weren't prowling just beyond our defenses, they had always quietly lurked within our own ranks. The world around us trembled with chaos, each howl of the hounds intertwining with the thrum of my own heartbeat. I stood frozen, caught in the web of Ilara's desperate words and the blade that glinted ominously under the firelight. The boy at my side whined softly, feeling the shift in the air, and all that was left was trust, neither a shield nor a weapon but a fragile choice. Ilara, please. My voice cracked, a raw plea escaping before I could cage it. You don't have to do this. Her gaze was wild, a tempest of indecision wrapping around her features like a shroud. You don't understand. There's no way out but to go through them. I can keep you safe, but you can't let them take you. Not again. Despair swept through me like an ice-cold tide as I caught a glimpse of the fear behind her fierce facade. It was a fear I recognized all too well, a fear of losing those we love and the eternal struggle to protect them, even when that protection strayed into the territory of betrayal. As the hounds howled fiercely, a surge of adrenaline pushed me to take a step closer. We can fight, Ilara. Together. Remember what we used to know. She shouted, cutting me off. The anguish etched on her face twisted my heart, a bittersweet reminder of the joy we once shared. It's different now. The stakes are higher, and they'll never stop chasing us. You are my only hope. We were tangled in this dance of scars and trust, teetering on the edge of something both tragic and beautiful. As memories flashed through my mind, the echoes of laughter in the sun, the way her fingers once intertwined with mine in the safety of our childhood dreams. I felt the warmth of connection shimmer underneath all the fear. But the immediacy surrounded us like a fog, heavy and charged with uncertainty. Gripping the wooden plank tightly, I raised it slightly as an instinct, a half-hearted offer of defense, as I felt the boy beside me tighten his grip in silent anxiety. "Elara, listen," I implored, my voice even as a vast ocean of emotion surged behind it. "You can't protect me by pushing me away. Let me help you. We can face them together." Her eyes flickered with something deeper, something that held them both captive and distant. A moment passed, pregnant with unspoken truths, as the world around us coalesced into silence, waiting for one of us to break it. Then, unexpectedly, came a whisper, a small voice from the crowd. "Elara, please. We believe in you." It was a young girl, trembling but brave, speaking through the darkness. The echo of vulnerability resonated with us, like a fragile lifeline offered in the moment when hope seemed lost. Only then did I see the slightest shift in Elara's tensions. The grip on her knife loosened slightly as she turned her head towards the girl, then back to me. Impressions of the family we once were, of loyalty and fear alike, flashed vividly between us. I can't lose you," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. "Then don't," I said, my heart thundering with urgency. "Choose me. Trust me." But just as hope flickered, a screeching further into the woods cut through the air, a long, distant howl but closer than the last. The pack encroached upon us, shadows weaving through the tree-line, anticipation lingering upon their muzzles. A chilling realization gripped my heart. Time was running out. The air vibrated with tension once again as I caught a glimpse of movement among the trees, a flicker of another figure. My stomach dropped as I recognized the silhouette one I feared from tales long told, the origin of anguish that had torn us apart, Sirith, the very hunter who had torn through our lives with malicious intent. "Elara, move!" I shouted in a last-ditch effort to rally the survivors, forming a wall between the innocent and the encroaching danger. Panic surged, but alongside it was a raw surge of determination. She turned back towards me, a mix of panic and realization dawning in her eyes. "I can't let him get to you." With newfound clarity, I faced her, the knife still raised. "Look at me. Elara, he's the monster here, not us. We can do this. For them." I pointed towards the crowd, desperate to remind her of our true enemies. Just as she hesitated again, the wild yelps of the hounds grew closer, their eyes glittered with predatory instincts, and I knew our time was short. We needed to choose now between the bonds that shackled us or the chance to sever our demons and fight. Then, out of the corner of my eye, a figure darted toward us, another survivor, a lithe woman whose name I had only heard whispered in desperation. And as she neared, I caught a glimpse of something that turned my heart to ice. A silver pin glinted against her cloak, emblazoned with a crest, the mark of betrayal, the very symbol of everything that had hurt us before. "Elara!" I shouted, but her focus was caught, eyes widening at the approaching woman. Her breathing quickened as panic set in. "We need to trust each other now." But just as the words left my lips, the hounds surged forward, charging into the clearing, and I felt a pull. The inevitable duel between loyalty and fear swelled within. "Elara!" I yelled one final time, knowing that whatever lay ahead hung like a thread above the abyss. "Do you believe us? Or are we already lost?" In that heartbeat, everything teetered on the brink. The earth beneath me felt alive, vibrating with fear, anguish, and the desperate breaths of those crammed close together in our makeshift gathering. As the hounds howled and the figure advanced, the memories of laughter and warmth seemed to evaporate into the thickening stench of despair. The young girl's eyes, still glimmering with hope, turned towards Methruff. Her bravery, I felt the flicker of a fragile connection binding us, one that refused to falter even in the darkness that loomed. The advancing woman, cloaked in shadows, stepped forward, revealing a face marred by shadows of familiarity. Hariana, a name shrouded in whispers of betrayal and loss. My breath stuttered, heart racing in my chest like a startled bird. I had heard stories, hushed voices in the dark, tales of her treachery, of families shattered and lives left as remnants in her wake. "Elara, stay back!" I called, my voice resolute despite the turmoil inside. We can't let her reach you, but Elara, wild-eyed and trembling, was caught in the web of her own memories. I could see her heart wrestle against her mind, battling between the traces of love and lingering mistrust as the icy grip of dread tightened around us. The hounds were nearly upon us now, darting through the trees, their beady eyes alight with hunger. "Please," Elara half whispered, her voice wavering as she looked from me to Harriena, "what do you want? Trust can be rebuilt, dear Elara." Harriena's tone was honeyed, but the grit beneath stung like a whip. "I can protect you from him." She gestured towards me with the ease of someone bearing secrets too heavy to share. "He's not what you think. I can help you all," but her defined beauty-sharp cheekbones and stormy eyes did little to scrub away the marked history that clung to her like ink on skin. I remembered the stories of her betrayal, the way she had turned on the very people she claimed to protect. The gust of fear threatened to drown me, but I couldn't show it. I had to uphold the sliver of hope woven through our fraying bonds. The silver pin on her cloak glimmered menacingly in the dim light, an insidious reminder of alliances I couldn't decipher in that moment. "Stay away from us," I warned again, my heart bruising at the thought of Elara succumbing to the allure of false promises. Just as the distance between us closed, the gnarled trees seemed to twist in protection, shifting like sentinels against those who sought to harm us. Elara turned, confusion tangled with fright. "Do we have a choice?" But that was the beauty and horror of our circumstance. Everything had stripped away the illusions we once held, peeling back our identities until only survival lay bare. "We are stronger together," I murmured, even if the words felt incomplete. "You and me," against all of this. A passing flicker of human emotion from the hounds interrupted our moment. Their howls crescendoed, and the cacophony shattered my resolve like glass. Deep inside, dread settled like a weight. I could feel the pull of uncertainty drawing me backward, but I refused to let it consume us. Harriena's gaze hardened, and for a fleeting moment, disbelief flickered in her eyes. Perhaps she sensed the doubt she once wielded. "You think your bond can withstand the storm? Love has a way of twisting into something unrecognizable," she taunted, her voice a sinuous whisper that sent chills down my spine. No. I shouted, forcing myself towards Elara, who stood frozen, torn between allegiance and fear. "We build our bonds anew. Love is a choice, not merely a sentiment." In that moment, I could see Harriena wavering, a crack forming in her armor of confidence. This was it. We could not allow doubt to flourish, especially when our fates hung limply in the air, like the frail threads of a tapestry. But just as I reached out, the earth rumbled beneath our feet, an unnatural shift that rattled me to my core. A howl pierced the air from the inside of the forest, almost human in its frequency, a sound steeped in anguish and rage. My heart reared back, shockwaves coursing through me as I searched for the source. It was like a summons, weaving through the silence, echoing, haunting over the trees, a call that sent the hounds into a primal frenzy. "Elara!" I cried, feeling the ground beneath me begin to shift. "We need to move. They're coming." The obedience of her face stiffened as realization dawned. Only then did the fleeting twist of kindness within me crystallize into determination. I sprinted toward her side, beckoning her forward as Harriena looked torn between panic and determination. But as we turned to flee, the horrifying screech splintered through the night, the unmistakable sound of a horror that threatened to bring our world crashing down. The pack surged, shadows deepened around us, their fangs glinting under moonlight, a chaotic deluge that swallowed the calls for help resonating behind us. "Elara!" I shouted amid chaos, locking my eyes with hers, willing everything I felt into that look. "We can't let them take us down." But then, as the first strike erupted through the haze of fear, something deep within me collapsed at the shocking truth. I wasn't just fighting for survival. I was fighting against everything that had ever torn us apart. As the hounds lunged, a noise broke through, the crack of thunder reverberating closest to our hearts, orchestrating a dissonance of betrayal and fear that solidified an unflagging reality. It sent chills through me, reverberating painfully in my chest. And as the figures roared closer, I felt a wave of sadness drowning beneath the surface, a sorrow I could not articulate. Even as our binds flickered like fuses, in a final twist of fate, I realized there was silence amidst the storm, a quiet acceptance of the destiny that lay ahead, and the looming specter of choices left unmade. A truth sank heavy in my chest: this night was still just the beginning. The air crackled with tension, a palpable energy that surged through the night, chilling my skin. As I stood rooted beside Alara, a fleeting shadow darted past, sending another shiver through the depths of my soul. The hounds were no longer distant specters, they were a vicious present, a brutal reality refusing to let go of the lost fragments of my past. Harriena loomed beside us, her presence both unsettling and oddly comforting, a twisted conveyance of once familiar warmth that felt utterly foreign now. "They aren't mere beasts, they are driven by something far more complex," she murmured, her voice a dark lullaby as the night grew thick with fear. "And so are we, complex." I spat, the word bitter on my tongue. "You think our plight can be rationalized? We're being hunted. This is about survival, not some philosophical exploration of our natures." Alara clutched my arm, her grip tight and shaky, a reflection of her growing fear. "What do we do?" Her voice trembled, and I could see the light of hope wane, flickering like an old candle caught in a storm. "That we run," I insisted, although uncertainty gnawed at me. Every instinct screamed to flee, yet my heart felt heavy with the weight of dread. I had to protect her, but how could I ensure her safety when the very ground beneath us served as a reminder of the betrayal that led to our suffering? Just behind Harriena, shadows coiled as the hounds emerged, teeth flashing, eyes wide with primal rage. With terror rising in my throat, I finally broke away from my anguish and made a decision. "Alara, trust me. We have to find shelter. We can't fight them here." Forcing a nod to force the possibilities alive within her, I grappled with my own doubts and guilt. As we sprinted deeper into the forest, tangled branches clawed at our clothes, and the shadows danced chaotically, echoing my frantic thoughts. Harriena followed closely, her presence trailing behind us like a phantom. "You are both foolish to think escaping this way will save you." Her voice, now laced with an undercurrent of desperation, sliced through the cacophony of howls. "You have no idea what is really pursuing you. We know enough." I shouted back, feeling the vulnerability of my heart laid bare before her. But even as the words left my mouth, my mind reeled. What did I know? The realities of nightmarish betrayal clouded my perceptions, each step amplifying doubts that whirled in the abyss of my thoughts. That creeping silence lingered, the anticipation thickening with every hurried footfall. Shadows melted together, and we stumbled upon a clearing, moonlight illuminating a crumbling stone structure, its walls graffitied with remnants of lives long past. It felt like a sanctuary from the encroaching chaos that we can hide inside. Alara cried, her green eyes searching mine desperately. We rushed through the entrance, the sudden darkness swallowing us whole. I delayed my instincts, casting a glance back. Harriena hesitated in the threshold, lingering in the shadows as if constricted by her own past. "Come on, we need to barricade," I urged her, but before I could finish the thought, she stepped forward with hesitant conviction, her gaze locked on something deeper within the ruin. "What if I told you that the truth was embedded in this very place?" Harriena's voice held an edge, her intent unclear. Beneath the layers of doubt and confusion, the weight of my memories crushed me like stones upon my chest. What truth could she possibly unveil that would not sever the fraying cords of our tenuous bond even further? The walls whispered secrets, the chilly air heavy with resonance, glimpses of the past shimmered like mirages before my eyes. Alara's hand brushed against the crumbling masonry, sparks of revelation unsettling the air. "What do you mean?" she inquired, a hint of desire for understanding cracking through her fear. "This ruin bears witness to those who cowered and fought against the hounds, those who bared their souls in the darkness," Harriena responded, each word layered with an urgency that thrummed through my bones. "Many drew strength from their shared scars, friends lost, families abandoned, those who lived in trust despite the world crumbling around them. To grow stronger, one must uncover that which has been lost." I could feel Alara split her focus between Harriena and me, the crevice of loyalty widening. "What does that have to do with us?" "Everything," she nearly hissed, her face a tempest of emotions. "Those who faced the storms together rewrote their destinies, frustration burned bright and hot within me. What are you saying? That by acknowledging our injuries, we will somehow come out of this journey unscathed? You betrayed us once, how can I trust anything you say now? As my thunderous words left me, I felt the chill of bitterness creep in. Elara tightened her grip on my hand, and for just an instant, the flicker of hope shone in her gaze again. But just as I dared to hope the embers wouldn't die, the world erupted. The wolves' voracious barks reverberated closer, echoing through the hollow space, and a sudden shift in the air sent tremors through the ground. I felt the courage drain out of my veins as panic wrapped around my chest. Then, a blinding light burst through the shuttered entrance, illuminating the corners of the shadowy sanctuary, casting long silhouettes against the stone walls. Run! I shouted, my voice hoarse. We can't let them take us. But before we could surge forward, a tremendous force blasted through the entryway, and in a flurry of chaos, a long-forgotten truth loomed closer than ever, threatening to shatter everything we thought we knew. Fear encircled us, and as the light dimmed, the clash of destinies began anew. Stand with me. We can face the truths together. Harriena shouted, her resolve stirring an unfurling sense of trepidation. And yet as the fresh fear settled in my bones, a chilling thought rushed in. What if the real enemy was not the darkness outside, but the unraveling of trust within? The blinding truth had finally begun its descent into revelations, and as I turned to face Elara, the scream stuck in my throat. Every moment swayed on the brink of uncertainty, our hearts desperately beating as one. And just like that, an unknown future beckoned, promising heartbreak or salvation just beyond the threshold. The wind howled like a desperate spirit, sweeping through the cracked walls, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something far more sinister. I pressed close to Elara, trying to anchor us both against the rising tide of chaos. The shadows danced menacingly on the walls, and the distant barks of the hounds grew louder, a cruel reminder that our time was fleeting. Harriena, we can't just stand here. I urged, my voice trembling. The silence clung heavily around us, each heartbeat echoing our desperation. But her gaze remained fixed on the entryway, as if searching for a presence beyond the dark. Elara, do you trust me? I whispered, stealing a glance at her, trying to pierce through the veil of fear that clouded her expressive eyes. Yes. She answered defiantly, her spirit flickering like a candle flame fighting against the wind. But how can we face what's coming? I don't know, I confessed, licking my lips and swallowing hard against the taste of despair, but we have to be ready for anything. Remember what I said. Harriena spoke softly, yet her words hung heavy in the air, laden with a different urgency. Our pasts are entangled with these woods. Only by exploring what's hidden can we truly arm ourselves against our pursuers. I glanced at the ruins around us once again, and the place came alive with a memory laced with warmth and fear. I had once imagined safety behind walls like these, surrounded by laughter and trust. But now, they were a dying echo of familiarity, serving only to remind me of the betrayal and wounds carved into my heart. Elara looked at me, uncertainty etching her features. What if Harriena is right? What if confronting our pain is the only way forward, or it could lead us straight into the jaws of darkness? I countered, the conflicting emotions ravaging my thoughts. Would allowing our vulnerabilities to surface truly bind us together, or would it unearth even more chaos between us? The flicker of her trust threatened to turn into a flame of resentment, and I couldn't let that happen. Suddenly, the hound's snarls grew treacherously close, and I stepped forward, taking charge. We can't afford to linger in this interplay of doubt. We should put all our energy into escaping this nightmare. But even as I spoke, doubt breathed life into my words. The air thickened with memories, with weighty echoes of silence that reverberated through the stone. It struck a poignant chord, one I couldn't ignore. Somewhere amid our turmoil lay a seed of growth, a chance to rise from this suffering. That I need to know the truth. I shouted, enveloped by an overwhelming mix of anger and fear. Harriena, tell us why this matters. Her expression thawed, revealing an agonizing blend of sorrow and resolve. Because none of this is as it seems. The hounds are not simply enemies, they represent our deepest fears, our betrayals, our past choices. Only by confronting this together can we turn our scars into strength. Elara's fingers brushed against the stones again, her body tensing as if awaiting the reckoning of whatever spectral truth lay hidden within this sanctuary. For a heartbeat, I saw the spark of understanding ignite within her, an acceptance of both fear and possibility. Perhaps within the heart of our tumultuous journey lay the chance for solitary healing. Before I could voice my thoughts, the hounds surged forward, a howling force that split the air. My instinct kicked in, pulling me towards the entrance, but just when we were about to flee, the darkness shifted again. Spectral figures materialized from the shadows, ghosts of souls who had once walked these lands, their hollow eyes filled with an emptiness that cut deeper than the claws of the beasts outside. Who are they? Elara gasped, terror rising in her voice. Echoes of the lost, Hariana murmured, her voice tinged with regret. They faced their own darkness here, only to become part of it, trapped in this twisted reflection of fear. But they also fought, she added, her determination rising. They became symbols of resilience, teaching those who dared to confront the clashing shadows. Outside, but at what cost? I interjected, feeling unease thrumming through my veins. Hariana locked eyes with me, her expression a nexus of emotions. Every story has a price, but the true courage lies in whether you are willing to pay it. That I felt Elara's hand tighten around mine, grounding me once more. My heart raced, teetering between the pressing need to break free from the haunted agony and the desire to discover this heart-stirring truth lurking in the darkness. Just then, illusionary figures began to weave and dance, their movements a reminder of forgotten lives, those who had lost themselves in their struggles, yet fought to forge bonds with those still alive. I felt a sudden surge of awareness, a notion that perhaps we were not so different from them. The shadows whispered bitter truths, reminders of sacrifices made and relationships shattered, and as I turned to Elara, teetering on the edge of an answer, a last howl erupted from the darkness, a final throaty proclamation that I could no longer ignore. Face me. A voice roared from the shadows, deep and commanding, sending shards of terror down my spine. There are truths buried in your hearts, and only when revealed can you find redemption. Like an electric jolt, emotion surged through me, hope, trepidation, and grief intertwined, and as I gaped at the darkness closing in, realization struck. We could not evade our own truths forever. But just as resolutely, I understood something monumental. This was more than survival, it was about unveiling the courage hidden beneath the scars. And there, for one fleeting moment, unity glimmered between us as the past, the pain, and the hopes collided. Could we conquer this torment together, or would the weight of secrets tear us apart anew? As the shadows loomed, the air charged, and from somewhere deep within, the haunting scream echoed louder than before, a reminder that it was not just our lives at stake, but the very essence of who we were destined to become. The wind continued to scream its mournful song, wrapping around us like a lover's embrace turned destructive. I could feel the weight of the question pressing against my chest, a relentless drumbeat that demanded resolution, yet offered no solace. The ghostly figures shimmered in the gloom, their translucent forms undulating with a grace that twisted my heart. They shimmered like fable and memory, haunting reminders of what it meant to fight against the abyss. That what we're destined to become. I murmured, the words slipping past my lips without the permission of my intellect. Trapped by our own shadows, not if we refuse to remain silent, Hariana assured, stepping forward as if compelled by an unseen force, her voice slicing through the heaviness that clung fiercely to my spirit. We do not have the luxury of retreating into silence. We must vocalize our fears to confront them head-on. Elara's and my hearts raced as we stood on the precipice of an abyss of truths, yet my mind spun in circles, paralyzed by the weight of the unknown. What lay beneath the surface of our memories? What darkness had we hidden, hoping it would fade into oblivion? I caught a glimmer of Elara's determination, a resolute spark flickering to life and gaining strength with every desperate heartbeat. Tell me. Elara's voice broke through the tempest. What is it that haunts you, Hariana? What truth lies at the core of this darkness? Her question hung in the air, pregnant with the possibility of revelation, the shadows flickering as if they too awaited the response. There was a fragility in that moment, a grace and vulnerability that enveloped us all like a fragile silk thread, binding our fears to our very souls. Hariana squared her shoulders, an ember smoldering in her eyes. When I was young, I made a choice, she said, a tremor in her voice that spoke of pain long concealed. I chose ambition, allowing it to consume me, and I betrayed those who loved me. It led to devastation for them and for me, a cycle of regret that would haunt my every breath. Elara's brow furrowed, her compassion flooding the chasm of Hariena's confession. "But you aren't defined by that choice, are you?" she urged, stepping closer, her voice an invitation to share more than just pain, a call to transmute that darkness. Hariena shook her head, tears pooling in her eyes, but a fire had ignited within her wrists, and she pressed on. "I believed, foolishly, that power could protect me. But each day I drew closer to the darkness, I lost pieces of my soul to it. I thought I was making myself invincible, but it turned me into a monster. The ones I loved became lost echoes, just like those shadows trudging through this place trapped by my actions." For a moment, time stood still. The shadows pulsated around us, breathing life into the very essence of regret, while the specters listened witnesses to our unveiling. Could they sense the potential for catharsis, I wondered? Elara's hand found my arm, grounding me, yet evolution flickered in her eyes as silent debate raged beneath the surface as she turned her gaze to me. I sensed my own truths rising ominously, threatening to coalesce with the dark fog surrounding us. Hariena spoke of her past, but what of yours? Elara brought the attention back, her voice steady, cutting through the ghost's mournful watch. "What do you carry with you?" My own breath trembled as I choked on my memories, gasping for clarity in an inky void. I was a coward, Elara. I let fear dictate my choices, abandoning those I loved because the weight of their expectations felt unbearable. And now I'm haunted by the faces of those I left behind in my flight. Tears stung my eyes as those faces emerged. The laughter, the love intertwined with the anguish of departure echoed throughout my mind. But with that pain, an inkling of warmth surfaced. "But I also learned," I continued, fighting back the tide of sorrow. "I learned that love means risking vulnerability even if it hurts. Because without it, we lose ourselves to the shadows." And suddenly, something shifted. The spectral figures, the subjects of despair and loss, began to sway and wail softly, their loneliness distilled within our confessions. I could almost see them nod in understanding, a procession of yearning souls supporting our tentative emergence from our own dark tunnels. "Perhaps we are not so different," Hariena breathed, and I felt her hand reach for mine, a tight-knit bond forged in our collective pain. "Our scars only signify beginnings to heal. We can transform our fractures into strength if we stand together." Just then, a low growl erupted, resonating through the air, a thunderous reminder that our time was dwindling. The hounds' fierce howls roared outside, their hungry presence a bitter portent of what lay ahead, amping the pulse within our hearts. "More darkness approaches," I gasped, panic threading through my veins. We had to act. We had to flee, but could we do so with this newfound wisdom weighing down our shoulders? "Let's harness the courage we have unearthed," Elara urged, her gaze now brighter, brimming with fierce resolve. "Our truths have the power to illuminate the shadows surrounding us. It's time to confront them." As we made our way toward our impending confrontation, the spectral figures mirrored our movements, surrounding us in a protective embrace. But just as we breached the threshold, a trembling voice crashed through the chaos. "Wait!" A ghostly figure cried, stepping forward, its visage both familiar and tragic. "There is one last truth you must face, the truth of your connection with this land." That I froze mid-step, disbelief rippling through me. Who was this? The air tingled with anticipation as I felt Elara's warmth beside me, her hand tightening around mine, and then the wind shifted, carrying with it the weight of forgotten promises, revealing that this encounter would demand everything we had left. "Only by understanding the bonds that tie you to this place," the figure continued, its voice chilling yet soothing, "can you protect yourselves from what's coming. It's more profound than you've known, an entrapment steeped in your heritage." Just like that, suffocating uncertainty flooded in, and the stakes rose sharper than ever. Would our truths guide us toward salvation or lead us astray? In that instant, as we began to grasp the full magnitude of the journey ahead, terror churned and my soul screamed, caught between the legacy we bore, the shadows we dared to face, and the ghost still residing within. "Embrace it," the figure whispered urgently, and as we stood before the gaping maw of fate, I knew we had no choice. The heart-wrenching truth behind our connection to this land beckoned, challenging us both to confront our legacies before the darkness consumed everything we held dear. The spectral figure's words wrapped around us like a vine, its grip tightening just as the claws of doubt began to puncture the resolve we had barely begun to form. The echoes of past wrongs reverberated in the air, fueling the tempest of emotion swirling within our chests. I took a shaky breath, trying to steady myself against the mounting pressure of the unknown. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice trembling yet insistent. "What is it about this land you say it's rooted in our heritage? What does that even mean for us?" The figure hesitated, shimmering as if trying to retain its corporeal form, the sadness embedded in its gaze mirroring our own unhealed wounds. "You are bound to this place more deeply than you realize, woven into the very fabric of its sorrow. Each choice you have made has echoed through the years, not only in your lives but within this land itself. The past is alive here, yearning for the truth to be unearthed." A wave of dread washed over me, colliding with the flicker of hope ignited by our earlier revelations. It was a reminder of our epic battle not only against the beasts that hunted us but against an intricate web of pain that extended through generations. Ilara's response was muted, her expression a canvas of fierce longing and resolute determination. "Then help us to understand. We need to know how to fight this darkness. Only by embracing the histories that bind you can you discover the strength within to protect not just yourselves, but the souls who have wandered these paths before you," the figure implored, urgency building in its voice. Harriena stepped closer, her eyes narrowing with recognition. What if the answers are not only what's been done to us, but what we've allowed to be done to others? What if our ancestors' mistakes are literally haunting us? A shiver raced through me at the thought. The weight of generational injustice loomed, enveloping us in both guilt and responsibility. Could understanding the depths of our connections lead us to true redemption? Or would it uncover secrets too horrible to face? Suddenly, a rumble echoed outside, a stark reminder that the howling hounds were still closing in. The air grew thick with fear and anticipation, each heartbeat pounding louder. "We don't have long," I urged, urgency clawing at my throat. "How do we face this darkness together? In your unity lies the light that can dispel even the mightiest of shadows," the figure insisted, its voice a soft plea amid the chaos gathering around us. "Remember the love that binds you. It can be your shield. As if summoned by the Spirit's declaration, the wind howled pitifully, rustling leaves from ancient trees like shushing fingers, sending messages of forgotten longings whispering through the air. Harriena and Ilara nodded, resolute in their understanding, and I felt the warmth of their unwavering presence ignite a resilience within me. We held hands, each clasp a pledge, a commitment to each other and to the memories we carried. We faced the terrifying truth that surrounded us, ready to embrace whatever pain the past would reveal. Just as we steeled ourselves to break through the misty threshold of the unknown, another voice pierced through the air, an unexpected sound tinged with elegance and regret. "You cannot save this land without confronting its true pain," said a woman stepping forward, her figure familiar yet ethereal, shadowy like moonlight cast through a mist. "Ilara," my heart raced as recognition washed over me. "Is that?" "It is me, Sophia," the woman whispered, her melodic tone both enchanting and haunting. "I have felt your heart's longing to heal, to uncover the truths of your world. We are entwined, Ilara, through lineage and love. The bridges of hope and heartache flow through our blood." The revelation rocked me to my core. Their connection, a thread woven deep in history and pain, was a revelation that brought more questions than answers. "Why didn't you tell us?" Ilara's voice wavered, the confusion and hurt glaring on her face. "Why hide this from me? I thought it was for the best," Sophia replied, stepping between the veil of the past and the present encircling us. "To spare you the burdens of our ancestors' failures. But now, faced with this encroaching darkness, the truth must be spoken. I cannot carry it alone any longer." Ilara's anguish poured like tears from her eyes, each drop capturing the essence of her lost lineage and the specters of choices unmade. "What is the truth?" she pleaded, the yearning breaking through the hollowness of the night. In that fragile moment, before Sophia could utter the next word, a furious howl cracked through the air outside, shaking the ground beneath our feet. The hounds were upon us, ferocious and relentless, yet the weight of familial burdens wouldn't allow us to flee without uncovering something deeper. "We must know." I urged, adrenaline surging through me as the shadows lunged ever closer. Only by reclaiming the love that has been lost, Sophia proclaimed, her voice now rising against the turbulence raging outside, can you understand what must be done? As the darkness surged, clashing against the fragile hopes we had begun to weave, an eerie chill gripped my heart. Sophia's revelations had only stoked the fires of bewilderment. What sacrifices had been made, and what truths would we need to uncover to truly break free from the chains of our past? With the hound's howls blurring into a cacophony of thunderous chaos, I sensed we were on the brink of both unimaginable heartbreak and the potential for untold healing. As the storm brewed outside and the shadows danced threateningly around us, I felt the very essence of my soul entwined with the mysteries yet to be revealed. Are you ready to face what you've been avoiding? Sophia asked, her gaze penetrating deep into our hearts, and in that breathless silence, I knew we had no choice. Our past was calling us, summoning us to a fierce reckoning that could alter the fate of everything we loved, and as we stood teetering on the cliff's edge, the ground below began to tremble, and the shadows lunged forward with feral intensity. I realized our journey was far from over, it had just begun, engulfed in the heartbreak that would define us. The wind howled through the crumbling stones, carrying with it the echoes of every breath I had ever taken, full of fear, regret, and longing. I stood shoulder to shoulder with Alara and Harriena, our hands clasped tightly, each pulse reverberating with the intensity of our shared promise, we would confront the darkness together. Below the chaotic symphony of the hound's growls, a silence loomed, almost palpable, and I knew we were standing at the precipice of something monumental. Are you ready? Sophia's ethereal voice cut through the rising tension. It trembled with a weight that felt both unsettling and resolute, a call to arms, to face the very essence of our intertwined pasts. Yes, Alara declared, her voice unwavering, a flicker of defiance igniting the determination within her. I want to understand, Harriena nodded, her expression fierce. We have to reclaim that which was lost. That I could feel the air thicken with anticipation as we transformed that desperate yearning into a shared resolve. This place was not merely a physical barrier, it was laced with our history, our pain, and our potential for redemption. Together, we had the power to rewrite our fates. As the hounds roared at the threshold, distorted silhouettes lurking just beyond the walls, I looked deep into the depths of Alara's eyes. The trust that had flickered between us before, fragile like a candle in the storm, had transformed into something profound and unbreakable. We were not merely fighting for survival, we were determined to find a way to honor our past while forging ahead into an uncertain future. That we moved in unison, stepping toward the doorway as dark figures writhed in the shadows. Face the truth, Sophia urged, her voice resounding with an ancient force. Only through understanding will you find your salvation. Taking a shaky breath, I stepped out into the thickening dusk. The howls echoed, ferocious and unforgiving, yet they also stirred something within me, a call to acknowledge my scars, my failures, and the power that came from battling through them, together. I yelled, and our voices melded into a singular roar, a battle cry against the encroaching dread. We charged forward, hands clasped, hearts pounding wild with life, confronting the phantom hounds that represented each foe we had faced, every lost hope we had buried. The darkness shattered against our will. We were met with a collision of growls and desperate roars, the tangible essence of our shared grief materializing into forms we could fight against. Inch by inch, we pushed through, buoyed by the strength that emanated from our unity. Each bearish snarl felt less like terror and more like a reminder of our resilience. Each choice we've made has led us here. Alara called, her voice breaking through, powerful like morning light cutting through the fog. And only together can we reclaim our truth. As we stumbled deeper into the chaos, I found myself suffocated by the weight of the past yet electrified by the promise of the present. These hounds were not merely beasts, they were a manifestation of every personal struggle I'd ever faced, betrayal, loss, despair, yet they could not hold power over me any longer. The walls of this ancient ruin felt alive, pulsating with memories long forgotten and with the light of a new beginning. Alara. I called over the uproar, my voice barely audible against the roaring tide of fury. Find your light. Alara seized upon my words, her eyes dazzling with fierce recognition. In that moment, I could see the small girl who had once assured me that we'd find a way. She was still there, infused with the strength of every loss, every lesson learned, and ready to confront the horrors that sought to devour us whole. the moment crystallized into clarity. I wrestled with doubt, but like the embers that smoldered beneath cold ashes, hope ignited anew. I saw a light flickering through the shadows, an emblem of our ancestors' undying love and the spirit of everything we had chosen to reclaim together. Climbing higher over the chaos, I unleashed every ounce of pain that had once shackled me. I roared out the truths, the fears, the heartaches, the burdens that had borne down on my soul. I am not defined by my failures. I will reclaim my joy. We will rise from this darkness. The hounds howled louder, a cacophony of furious echoes crashing around us, but it only fueled our resolve. They surged fiercely, but we stood our ground, woven together in a tapestry of shared history, shattered trust, but an unyielding heart. Each loss became an anchor to our strength, a testament to the unbreakable bonds we forged amidst the torment, together. Elara shouted again, and the weight of her voice reverberated against my chest, pushing away the shadows, unearthing the flickering flame of hope that had waited far too long to blaze. Just then, as the darkness pressed heavier around us, I felt an inexplicable surge, a pang of luminosity surged through the dust and despair. It poured through like a torrent, illuminating every vestige of hurt. The shadows recoiled, unraveling before the corners of my heart, opening a portal to what was lost, and in that moment of reckoning, we understood, the peace we longed for could only arise from understanding our intertwining legacies, from offering compassion to ourselves and the history we bore. We were warriors who had battled our own darkness, and navigating these treacherous paths would lead us towards the light we so desperately craved. As though sensing our newfound strength, the pack of hounds faltered. In their eyes, I saw something unfurl, a flicker of wonderment, a whisper of respect for those who dared to challenge the shadows. With each heartbeat, we reclaimed our essence by embracing the pain, shaping it into armor that allowed us to break free from the chains of our past. This land belongs to us, just as our scars belong to our journey, Harriena declared, echoing our strength, each of us locked in our collective mission. It erupted like a wave of energy, radiating determination as we pressed forward against the shadows, witnessing the embodiment of our truths emerge through the veil. The ethereal dance of the lost spirits blended with our own yearning for redemption, illuminating the history we sought to rewrite. In that moment, the veil of darkness unraveled, revealing the beauty of what had existed before despair, a unity of spirit and heart blooming amidst the aftermath. As the hounds howled, their primal fury waning, I felt a profound warmth enveloping us, a sign that our journey was merely beginning, but our intimate connections to the land and each other would guide us home. And standing in the breathtaking clarity of dawn breaking through the remnants of night, I finally understood that healing was not a destination but a journey. Together, we would navigate that journey, weaving light into the shrouded corners of our past. As we turned our faces towards the rising sun, vulnerable yet emboldened, my heart shifted with profound acceptance. Because I had learned the greatest truth of all, love, in its myriad forms, is both a weapon and a shield, and it is our most powerful tool against the darkness. The path ahead may still be fraught with turmoil, but now, it felt bearing, our fates entwined with a resonance that would forever echo in the annals of our souls. Together, we stepped confidently into the light, knowing that no shadow could ever claim the flame that burned within our hearts again. And as we ventured forth, I wrapped my arm around Elara, breathing in the sweet promise of a new beginning. Ultimately, everything we had lost and every step we had taken led us to this singular moment, a reminder that healing finds its way not through escaping darkness, but by daring to walk towards the light, hand in hand. And in my heart, a whispered promise arose, echoing in the silence of the break of dawn: we are never truly lost as long as we carry love, guiding us home.